Hi, I'm Andrew Smith from the Open University Cisco Academy Support Centre. Today I'm speaking to Rebecca Harrop from Bedfordshire. Hi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, I've been working as both an FE and a HE lecturer for a very, very long time. I've been using the Cisco Academy for 20 odd years, and currently I'm now senior lecturer in cybersecurity at the University of Bedfordshire, and I also work as an associate lecturer in networking with the Open University.
Excellent. So you're both a colleague and somebody who works in another Cisco Academy as well. So, Rebecca, what encouraged you originally to become part of the UK Cisco NetAcad community?
Well, many, many years ago, I think it was originally billed as being part of our staff continued professional development. So the institution where I was with wanted their teachers to be up to date with the latest knowledge in the curriculum area. So that was computer systems and networking. They were especially keen on the vocational focus for employability skills and practical ability. And they wanted to become a Cisco Academy. So they sent 3 or 4 of us along to become Cisco instructors, and it built from there.
Okay, so how did it build up in your time when you worked in further education?
To be completely honest, it kind of steered my own professional development from that point onwards, really. We started utilizing it with our students from the very beginning. And then as the portfolio grew, we found it to be really useful and very successful. And we grew it and grew it and grew it.
So you're now in higher education. You're at a university in Bedfordshire. Which courses are you currently using from the NetCAD portfolio?
So at the university level, we've got the CCNA that we certainly use with the first and the second years. We use Cyber Essentials with first year university level. We use Cyber Ops with, and I have used Cyber CCNA Security for both grad and postgrad levels. We use Linux Essentials to pick up the pieces when people are learning about computer systems. And again about cyber, because a lot of cyber's based on Linux builds. And then on occasion, I've also used programming, and now we're starting to look at Internet of Things fundamentals.
Okay, so quite an interesting and diverse portfolio here. You've mentioned cyber a few times. How are you finding the cybersecurity operations curriculum?
There's a lot in it. So it's got a very, very large introduction to networking in there. There's a little bit of everything. So there's a little bit of information security. There's a bit of forensics. There's a tiny touch of learning how to do incident response and incident responding. So it gives people a little taste of quite a lot of different cyber ops areas. So I quite like it.
Okay, that's quite useful. Now, I recall that you won an award from computing last year. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, I was awarded Role Model of the Year, which I in no small part was probably done by being able to be a female techie and still continue to do all of the learning that I have, plus trying to teach people. So in particular, I've sort of over the past 5 years in particular, but for longer than that, I've been teaching people in key skill shortage areas. So again, the cyber part of that has been fairly heavily driven by that. So a lot of the work that I've done when I've been teaching people is to try and give them or help them to gain employability skills in these key skills shortage areas, of which cyber and networking is one of them.
So, how do you think the students that you're currently teaching find the experience of Cisco NetAcad program?
I think they find it very challenging, but very rewarding. I think it's quite engaging. Well, it's very engaging. It's got a very high multimedia content, so they can see things in more than just reading a piece of text. There's a lot of multimedia content, and then there's built-in assessments for them to be able to gauge how they're doing and get used to the way the exam questions are done. Really decent sort of practical experience in it, and little lab opportunities and employability skills and packet tracer simulations that can make them have a play around with things. And so it also really supports a very, very good flipped learning or distance learning model, which is great for everybody in the current climate, to be completely honest. And I've found that students have really engaged in it. I remember a particularly feisty cyber essentials class I was teaching some years ago that was just level 3, but they were a feisty set of students, and I gave them a particular lab practical, and I sort of thought at the time, this is either going to be sink or swim. But actually, you could have heard pin drop across my classroom. And even though they weren't, because these were typical teenage boys, and I thought they were going to have a competition to see who would be the best hacker, etc., etc., etc. But they didn't mind that it was a simulation at all. Within minutes, they were all busy trying to see who could get to Alice's computer the first to be able to steal the credit card details from her computer, and they enjoyed it thoroughly. And that for me is priceless. When you can see people engage with the materials and have the theory backed up by doing a practical, that's exactly what it's about.
So not necessarily putting words in your mouth, it gives them focus and gives them a relevance of what they're doing when they're doing it.
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes when you read something, especially when it's something complicated, you're grasping at it a little bit. You've kind of think you've got the knowledge, but then when you do an associated practical or you play around with something with the practical experience, it really helps solidify the understanding within your own mind. And it makes things that much clearer as to what you're actually doing, as it would in the workplace. But, you're coming at this for people who aren't in the workplace. That's what they're being trained to do. So it gives them that sort of simulation, that experience that they might otherwise find very, very difficult to get.
A good vocational, academic, practical practice all rolled up into one.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So in the longer term, look into the future, where do you think you're going to take NetAcad with your current students over the next couple of years?
I think that we'll continue to use it, especially along the sort of the cyber pathway, because I really do see that it feeds into that very, very nicely. We're quite excited by the Internet of Things. For me, the NetAcad has a very, very big benefits for the teachers and the students alike, in that you really know that you're starting to get curriculum that at least is up to date and moves with the times. What can really be difficult sometimes is, even with the best will in the world, a teacher who looks at a unit specification may not thoroughly realise or appreciate that that unit specification could be years and years and years out of date, until you start looking at what professional certification programs, of which Cisco Academy is one of them, are actually doing. You sometimes don't realise how out of date some of the stuff that you're doing and teaching is compared to what's happening in the workplace. Now, obviously, in computing, that moves really, really quickly, but the Cisco Academy, to a certain extent, really tries to keep up with that and make sure that the curriculum's current. So I find that to be of real benefit. And I think that therefore helps us to see that the portfolio within Cisco keeps growing, but the materials of already existing programs continues to be a very high quality and currently relevant. And I think that's one of the key things. So I think we'll continue to use it, and we'll continue to expand where we can. Some of the programming stuff, for example, is very, very helpful as well.
So finally, would you recommend NetAcad to any other academic colleagues?
Without hesitation or reservation, absolutely.
The fact you've been doing it for 20 years, you are somewhat committed.
I am, but it's not put me off. I like it. In fact, love it very, very dearly.
That's going to be your byline. They haven't put me off. Thank you very much, Rebecca. That's a great conversation. Thank you very much.